And so with this, it becomes a whole mess because then it turns out that like even in the very first few pages, Chris and Montoya are on the roof collecting a batarang. They're doing all sorts of stuff, and out of nowhere, freaking Batman just shows up in like complete silhouette, and he's like, "Robin's in Bloodhaven. This isn't him." And they're like, "Holy shit! What the fuck? Like, where'd you come from?" And Batman says, "I will figure this stuff out. You need to get out of my way." And that's one thing that I absolutely love about Batman, because he's still the stern Batman that we all know. He is the one that's like, hey, this is my job. I'll do my job. Even though, technically it is a crime scene, a GCPD crime scene. But basically what ends up happening is they find out who the ID is for this individual Batman, and they go to the parents' house. They also go and check out Arkham Asylum. Yeah. And this I thought was really cool because the personnel that was working at Arkham Asylum was like, hey, we had a little bit of a blackout, but the really weird thing is when we got out of the blackout, all of a sudden, everyone in here had injuries. And they're like, what? And it's really funny because Chris and Montoya were like, Batman? Batman. Yep, that's Batman. And the awesome. Personnel workers were like, what do you mean it's Batman? And they talk, and it's like in small little 6 panels or whatever, you see Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, Scarecrow, Mr. Freeze, Two-Face, and Joker. And they kind of all just, play it off. They don't necessarily say it was Batman, but it's clear that it is. And something's still paying off on prior issues. Two-Face still is crying out for Montoya. Yeah. Which I thought still a really nice callback. And you see Joker for the second time, and his arm's broken. But what eventually gets them all riled up is that they find out that these pictures that were being taken, because they find out that these pictures, these pictures from the crime scene, are being put on newspapers, and they're like, who the hell is leaking these pictures? What the hell is going on? And so they call in an individual that is kind of their like liaison for like the media. It's pretty much their go-to guy.
It's a reporter.
Yeah.
So it's like a big-time reporter. Think of like a Vicky Vale or something.
Yes.
It's just their kind of version. But he's actually a really big character in this show, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because he's like, he gets information from them. He's like, look, I'm going to help you guys out, but you got to help me too.
He helped with the Joker part. Yeah. He helped with this. Well, no, he helped in...
He shows up in the Joker one. That's the first time.
Yeah. And you see him throughout the whole thing. I will say this is the last arc that you see him, though. And there's reasons why. But when talking about Driver and this... Well, no, it wasn't Driver at this point. It was her new partner and this redheaded woman that I still can't remember her name. They go to the Iceberg Lounge. They find out that the electricity has gone out and everything else. So she immediately knows, oh crap, Batman's here. She runs into the office of Cobblepot, and there he is beating the crap out of Romy. Okay. Yeah. So Romy is there, and Batman's beating the crap out of Cobblepot, and
it's awesome.
Romy freaks out. She's like, stop beating him up. Freeze, don't move a muscle. And all Batman says is, I don't think so. And she shoots him. Yeah. And the way that he is laying there, I legitimately thought, okay, this is not Batman. That's what I thought too. This is somebody who was pretending to be Batman and somebody else who was pretending to be Robin. This is what I immediately thought of. And I was like, holy crap, she just killed somebody. This is not going to be good whatsoever. But it's actually really cool because in the very next issue, how it starts is, she's trying to think and trying to, focus. This new partner is, kind of freaking out also. And like, oh my God, you shot him for no reason. Like, was he trying to shoot you? Like, did he make a move?
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. And Cobblepot's like, if you need a witness,
Yeah.
I'll tell
I
tell
love
him
that part.
I'll tell him
It
that
was self-defense.
it was self-defense. And she's like, just shut up. And she goes towards freaking Batman, and Batman gets up and knocks her right in the freaking nose, breaks
her
it,
nose.
blood goes everywhere.
Yeah.
And when Batman leaves, because the new partner is a little too scared to say anything to him, Batman leaves, and then Romy realizes, holy crap, Batman stole my gun.
Yeah.
Now,
that was great. Yeah.
it was awesome. Now, it does become known for the rest of the MCU that she has lost her gun. This becomes a really big part near the end of this arc. But
the captain doesn't, though, because apparently losing your gun and being a cop is a very, very bad thing.
Yes, very bad thing.
They don't tell the police captain, though.
Yeah.
Until the very end.
But Sawyer, in the last issue, thought, hey, you know what? If we can't find out where Robin is or who Robin is, I know somebody who will. And she ends up calling Lois Lane to call in a favor, and the Teen Titans show up. Which I thought was really cool.
Without Robin, though. So,
without Robin, and so they're like, what is going on here? Mm-hmm. And so they go to question them. And, I did say earlier that they did find out who the identity was of this first Robin.
Yeah.
They go to this family's house. They start to freak out, and then when they are staking out the family's house again, this family is talking to the media, and so they freak out even more. Like, what are you doing? Why would you do this? You don't talk to them like that. And they're like, hey, we're grieving. We can share, our story to the world if we want. And Driver says, you really want to share this story to the world, knowing that you are a part of this? I got 2 words for you. The Joker. And they start like freaking out like, oh my God, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said anything, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, just think, dude. That's all you got to do. Just think.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love too about this series is the great thing about having established villains. And I know my channel, if you're listening to this, you're like, oh, you're writing up your comment, or you probably already commented before you even listen to this part. But I know that yes, they couldn't use the Joker name and they couldn't do this, but really the Joker, Harley Quinn, and Batman were the only things they couldn't really use. Which you could have, in this whole series, Batman is in the shadows, and they could have really done something with this. They didn't need to show Bruce Wayne. They didn't do any of that. Again, Bruce Wayne is never shown in this series.
Yes.
So they could have done that. But the way that they build the characters, and that when somebody's already established, right, you can build that fear. You know what I mean? Like, going through a door and Two-Face is there, the characters can be like, oh shit. It's not like, who's this weird looking guy? Like, no, you see the shock because they're like, that's Two-Face. He will cut you in half. He'll cut you in 2 pieces. He'll do all this. That makes the characters so much better, opposed to Gotham, where they're like, all right, now we got to build up this character. We got to have him do some crazy stuff. And then
because it no longer became, it wasn't a story about the GCPD. It was a story about these villains.
For sure.
And, we've clearly seen from the Joker movie that stories about villains can work, but you cannot color code it by something that is called Gotham and say that it's based off of this book that is about the GCPD, when that's not what you're writing. That's not what you're showing.
For sure.
But the really cool thing, Starfire turns heads in this book.
Yeah.
She's
wearing the very skimpy outfit.
She's wearing her classic outfit, completely showing from right below her belly button all the way up to her neck, and even Romy is like, gosh, men. But then you see like Renee and Sawyer kind of like, hey. Yeah. So I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, you're drooling. And she's like, fuck off. Yeah.
But we established that Sawyer does not trust this guy that they have made a pretty good relationship with in the media. And she asks for his source because she thinks that they are involved with leaking this stuff to the media, even though it's an ongoing investigation. that could really compromise what they are going for as far as who the killer is. And he gets offended. And he ends up talking to a friend of his, and he's like, yeah, you're right. It wasn't me who leaked the photos, but it was the principle of, hey, you shouldn't have asked me for my source anyway. Really old school type guy. Now, the really cool part of this, and the pin drop of this issue, or the series altogether, is Sawyer goes out. It is well established that Sawyer goes out onto the roof to eat her lunch, on her break. Stacy, sorry. Stacy goes out and eats her lunch on the roof where the bat signal used to be, because at this point the bat signal was not there. And lo and behold, who was there? Robin. The real Robin. Awesome. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, me, as somebody who knows these characters, knows that this could not possibly be Robin that is dead. I see Robin, and I'm actually surprised. Like, that is cool that they could write it like that, to be like, oh shit, that's actually
because
Robin.
They said he was in Bloodhaven.
Exactly. So
like they set that up too.
They set that up, but Stacy makes a really good argument whenever it comes to the conversation between her and Robin. They're like, Robin actually is very concerned about what's going on with this investigation, clearly because of course these people are dressed up as him, but they come back to the whole conversation with Romy with fighting Batman, and Robin name drops Nate. And she's like, wait, you know this person? And he's like, yeah, I know this person. Like, I remember all of them. I remember all the victims, basically. And Stacy says, hey, if you could do me this really good favor, I need Romy's gun back. She didn't really mean to, and I don't think Batman really meant to break her nose either. But, let's just let bygones be bygones, basically.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay, I'll see what I can do. And immediately after, there's another Robin that dies. And so you're just like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. She watches Robin like zip away, and then she sees that Batman's like on a water tower talking
to
him.
That's after. That's after.
Oh, it's after?
Yeah.
That one.
No, it wasn't this one. She goes downstairs after he jumps off the roof, and she gets a call that there's another Robin. And so like they're like, what the hell is going on? This is where it gets a little bit juicier. They find out who this Robin is because the face looks very familiar. Yeah. They actually track it down to an acting agency, and finding out that this person was very famous for a like mint ad or a gum ad. I forgot what it was exactly. But they find out, okay, this person must be going after actors. Let's go ahead and get every male actor that's within this age, this height, whatever. Basically, who would look good as a Robin. And they find out through some investigating that they might know who it might be. This is when you see Stacy and Robin again. And Robin jumps off the roof and swings right onto a water tower with Batman. And Stacy's like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's pretty solid.
I do like that because once again, Batman is in silhouette. You don't see him. It's not something that is very prominent, but it catches your eye and you're like, oh snap, he is still watching from afar. He still has an eye out for the GCPD. Mm-hmm. But this is when Chris finds out that the pictures were not taken from the GCPD investigation photos.
Awesome.
They were actually taken basically right after the crime was committed, but before the GCPD got there.
Yeah.
So with a little bit of investigating, they think that it's the main guy that they get from freaking the media.
The reporter,
Lipman is his name.
Yeah.
But, plot twist, it's not actually him. It is his friend that he had talked to earlier on in the arc. Yeah. And basically, he comes walking into the GCPD in the MCU because he wants to be the one that's involved. He's the sicko that knows how these things happen. and so he wants to be a part of it. He wanted to be the next Two-Face. He wanted to be the next Riddler. He wanted to do all this stuff.
Yeah. And he would only talk to his friend. He wanted his friend to
Yeah.
do the story.
Yeah. But he
it
also
was crazy.
But he also wants to be a part of the overall gag. So that means he has to meet Batman as well.
Yeah.
So they're like, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. But there was still one last child that was out there somewhere. And he even said, oh, this kid only has a couple hours to live. So Maggie said she's the one that has the final word. She's the one that says, hey, we have to let Batman in. And this was awesome because once again, silhouettes only and absolutely terrifying for him. They get a bat signal working. They get Batman on the roof. They talk to him about the whole situation. Batman says, turn off all the lights in the squad room and in the block. Yeah. And everything turns off. This guy is freaking out. He's like, hey, what's going on here? And Batman just appears out of nowhere. And then you just see Maggie's face. You see Montoya's face. You see Chris's face. You never see this guy with Batman. But you hear the screams of, oh, God, don't hurt me. Oh, my God, I'm so sorry. Oh, the kid is at this location, blah, blah, blah. And then they go and save the kid. That is something I absolutely love as well. Because afterward, he's just like, oh, God, I'm so sorry. Like, I finally met him, and he talked to me. Like, he's fanboying over this experience, but he's still scared shitless out of his mind.
Yeah.
So they do end up saving the day, but it was really good. I absolutely loved it. I loved the interaction with Robin. Romy actually ends up getting her gun back, but accidentally Montoya Montoya accidentally slips up and tells Sawyer that she lost the gun. But Driver comes up and he's like, oh yeah, here's your gun. You had it in maintenance because that's why you accidentally shot Batman, because the warning shot,
off. Like the sight was off.
Exactly. And even Sawyer was like, you're still sticking with that story? And Driver was like, as long as you'll buy it.
Yeah. She's like, whatever. It's really good. So the thing about that, and we're going to talk about the final issue. We're going to wind this up. But the thing is, so Gotham did this. The next thing I'm going to talk about, Gotham did this one thing somewhat. They didn't do it a lot, but they did somewhat. But there's one character in this story, and it ends the whole series. There's this character who is the villain, we find out over time. His name's Jim Corrigan.
Do you know why that name sounds so familiar, though?
Because he's a Spectre.
That didn't dawn on me until the last fucking issue.
Yeah, but it's funny because you read a whole issue about him previously.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah.
In issue 38 or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but is that the Spectre, though?
So, I don't think he becomes the Spectre until after this, of course.
When he dies.
Yes.
Right?
So, okay. I think that, there's a website called comicbookreadingorder.com.
Yeah.
I want to go in there and type in Jim Corrigan to see where he is in retrospect to when he becomes the Spectre. Yeah. Because he is such a snot, he is, oh my God, he makes my skin crawl. Yeah. And to know, this is another thing that was awesome for Brubaker and Rucka to write. You see his shenanigans, his dirtiness.
Yeah.
By issue 6.
Mm-hmm.
And he becomes the overall villain of the entire book by the end of the series.
Yeah, he is basically, for those of you that love Game of Thrones, he is Cersei. He is the Cersei of this, or he is, I don't want to spoil it for Clay, but yeah, he is one of the main villains. And, but, you don't think he's that bad. And then even when you're like, oh, that's kind of shady, he's still just somebody but at the end of the series, you want him dead.
Oh my God.
At the end of the series, you want him dead.
We will get to it, but I wanted someone, not necessarily Montoya or Chris, but I wanted somebody to pull a Bullock on Corrigan. Yeah.
So we'll just jump into it. We're not, because look, you have to go read this series. We're gonna blow through this last part. You have to read this series. If there was anything you wanted to ever pick up that's random, that is not Batman, but kind of deals with Batman, Gotham Central is what you need to do. Uh, it's if Gotham was anything like this, it would have been fucking fantastic. Because one, there was such great character development. There were characters that were in it were so good. The villains were good, but again, those villains never overshadowed the actual characters that were in the GCPD. And again, we had a story that had Freeze, Two Face, Joker, who else? Mad Hatter, Ivy was in a one. You have all of those full blown character names, and the person you hated the most in this was a guy named Jim Corrigan. Like, that is how good this story is. It's how good the writing is on this. And yeah, so again, like I said, the reason why I would consider her and Chris the main characters, Montoya, is because she ends the series, right? So what you're gonna learn is if you go and read this book, Montoya goes through this big arc because I would actually say she's the main character because we have the thing that deals with Harvey Dent. She is outed at the GCPD as being a lesbian. She was not out, but somebody posts a photo of her kissing her girlfriend. And that photo gets posted on the bulletin board. Everybody's like, "Oh, so you're a dyke, you're all this stuff, blah blah." That's what they use in the comments.
Yes,
That's
and
in there.
I will say they use that so much,
Yeah,
and I know for when you're reading it, you are supposed to hate these characters that are using it. I very much felt like that.
yeah,
Like because you feel so much for Renee Montoya throughout all she's
yeah,
been through from issue 1 all the way until the very end, and there's so many people calling her freaking Detective Dyke.
yeah. So it happens a lot. Granted, that particular phrasing comes from a Flash Rogues Gallery character. So they don't just stick with Batman characters. There's actually a Flash character that shows up in this series. So
Yes.
that was kind of cool. But anyways, so she goes through this. She gets outed. Her parents. She is a Latina. If you guys don't know any Latinos or Latinas in your life, some of the parents are very traditional and very religious. And when her parents find out, they are like, "Leave! Don't ever come back. We don't want anything to do with you," because
Yes.
they thought she was straight. And coming out as lesbian is like sin. So they are just like, "Gone. You're gone. You're not our child."
It was rough.
It's brutal. Yeah. So that happens to her. So she, of course, confides in her partner, and she confides in her actual partner, who's her lover and her partner. So her partner at work, and her partner who she's romantic with. So she confides in them, and those are her real like family. After that, and then it goes through the whole Two Face arc, and then over time, you see her slowly descending into madness almost because the stuff with Bullock shows up, and they're trying to work on this case, and she's trying to save Bullock from doing something crazy, and Bullock's like, "Fuck this, I have nothing to live for," and so she's going through all this drama with Bullock, and then it gets worse and worse because her partner ends up getting framed for possibly killing somebody, and they because they don't have the evidence. It turns out that that guy Jim Corrigan, who works in the evidence room, has been stealing pieces of major crimes and selling them on like the black market eBay.
Yeah.
And he's making like thousands of dollars off of this. Well, the bullet that would exonerate her partner is missing. So they think he killed this guy. What was it, Black Spider, right?
Yeah.
He
Well,
kills Black
he
Spider.
kills Black Spider, but he also kills somebody from some other gang that they were
Yeah,
trying to apprehend before that.
yeah. And so the ballistics would have confirmed that he's innocent, but they can't find that bullet. So because it got sold. And so what she has to do is she has to get information on who he sold it to. This guy's a complete asshole. He's not going to give up his sources. He's like, it doesn't matter. And she's like, you and me outside. Because one of the big prominent things you see in this series is there's a cop bar. And, all cops do this. I have a few cop friends.
Finnegan's, I think it's called.
Yeah, classic cop bar name. But yeah, they go to Finnegan's, and this is where all the cops hang out. They all got their back. It doesn't matter. And so she goes to Finnegan's to confront this guy. And he's like, "Give me this information." He's like, "Oh, what are you gonna do about it?" And she's like, "I'll beat your ass outside." And he's like, "Let's do this." So it's Montoya, girl, versus this guy Finnegan, and he pops her
Corrigan.
one good, and then
Corrigan.
she,
You said
Corrigan. My bad. Um, you know, they start fighting. He's like kind of like gets one up on her, and then she beats his
Oh
ass.
my
And
god.
yeah, beats his ass in front of all his friends, and she's all like, "Give me the information, because all your friends just saw you get your ass beat by a woman or whatever." And she ends up getting the information. She goes to this old lady that like collects memorabilia, and she's like, "I need that bullet. I'll give you." She ends up trading the bullet that actually got lodged in her chest because she got shot. And she's like, "This is the last bullet that Black Spider dude ever even shot before he got killed. So it's better than the one she has."
Yeah.
And but what turns out happening is this other guy that was helping her partner like be exonerated was building a case.
Espinosa. Yeah.
Yeah, was building a case against Corrigan to get fired. I'm saying his name right, Corrigan, right?
Yes.
To fire him, to actually get him fired from the GCPD. But since Montoya did that, apparently it blows up the whole case. I don't know. I didn't really understand why.
Just
I guess it's because he forced it.
Yeah.
She
So
forced him.
if you were to go to a court and say, "Hey, Corrigan, you are being, uh, accused of tampering with evidence and doing all this,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you plead?" He's gonna say, "I'm innocent because she beat the crap out of me and made me say that I'm guilty."
Yeah.
Like it could easily go that
Yeah.
route. So
Yeah. So that was interesting. So basically, this huge case this guy Espinosa had on her. Now, again, this goes back to the great character development. This Espinosa guy accused Montoya of murdering somebody in the Two-Face
yes,
arc.
because Two-Face framed her as well.
Yeah.
Framed her in that story because a whole bunch of people started to freaking die
Yeah.
because there was, I believe, one guy in particular was
Mhm.
kind of harassing Montoya
Yeah.
and threatened her and her partner and all of
Mhm.
this. So when he ended up being, killed, everybody
Yeah.
pointed their finger at Montoya. That's what got
Because
her.
her gun got stolen.
Yeah.
And so they like connected the ballistics. Like she was framed.
She
like,
was
big time.
straight up framed. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing here is great character development, which you didn't see a lot in Gotham, the show. Here we have this cop that brought her in. He was basically, "You're accused of murder," and now he helps her save her partner, and it blows his whole case. And he's like, "I'm just trying to make this right." She's like, "Why are you doing this?" He's like, "Because I'm just trying to make it right."
Yeah.
And so he basically, something he's been working on forever, he gives it up. And, this guy Corrigan's going to walk forever. Well, the great thing about that is her partner, like, they have a great relationship. Like, they have such good chemistry in this comic book, her partner Chris and her. And what ends up happening is he's like, "How the hell did I get off? Like, what happened?" She's like, "Tell me what happened. I heard you were fighting Corrigan or whatever." And what ends up happening is he finds that out and he's like, "That's bullshit. Why would you do that? You just blew this whole thing out of proportion," blah, blah, blah. He's like, "You're not even thinking smart anymore." Montoya starts drinking. Like, she's got a lot of life problems. And that's why I say she's the main character. Because I feel like they focus on her life more than anybody else's. And what ends up happening is this guy, Chris, wants to make it right as well. Because, again, this is the MCU. And they just want, they want the bad cops out. And they just want to have justice. So he starts investigating Corrigan. And I think this would be a great finale because this is the one villain you've had to deal with this whole series. And he's like, "I'm finally going to get him." So he starts collecting evidence. Well, I think it's another cop, right? Finds out or sees one of their informants talking to him.
Yes. So this other cop, this cop that sees Chris talking to, he's a narcotics officer, lower tier than MCU.
Who is also dirty.
He is also dirty, and you see this in another arc, completely separate from this one. So
the Ivy arc.
Once again,
or the Ivy issue.
Yes. Once again, you see the connective tissue of these characters. Something that I don't think would have been easily put in something like what Gotham ended up being. But
yeah, not really.
He ends up telling Corrigan, and then Corrigan's like, "All right, I see how it is. Let me plan this whole thing out." And then the next thing you know, he has this dude tied up by the neck, by the hands, everything. He even gets this other police officer chick to hold him down or whatever. And then Corrigan grabs a freaking wrench, a pipe wrench, and he says, "Oh, by the way, guys, y'all should leave the room. There's going to be some splatter." and that's how the
Yeah.
issue ends, and you're like, holy fuck.
Yeah, so the guy that told Chris information, uh, you know, he dies. Corrigan kills him, and what happens is there's this whole thing, and again, the Spectre issue was a very interesting one because it evolved around Chris believing in God or not, and
Yes.
he was like, "I don't believe in God anymore," and his family prayed for him, which made this issue a lot more like heart wrenching because his wife is always worried about him, and she's like, "You're going out again," and he's like, "This is gonna be the last time, I promise." Well, he goes out to meet this informant again, finds out that he is dead, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And he sees a cop, and he shoots the cop. Right? He shoots the cop that he think killed that guy,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So the cop goes down, and when he's gonna go call it in or whatever, Corrigan shows up and blasts this dude through the back and shoots him like 5 times with a gun that can blast through bulletproof vests.
Yes.
Now, the crazy thing about Corrigan is there's only like 6 of these guns in, I don't know, the city or whatever. They know where all of them are at, and they're part of the GCPD or whatever. And well, it turns out that Corrigan had it all planned in advance. He was like, "Look, you're going to tell them that I actually checked this gun out. And we went to the shooting range, or we went to out into the woods with this other cop woman, and we just shoot things, and they hinted at like they have sex and do all this stuff. That's why they went to go do it, because they wanted privacy while they were shooting guns."
Yeah.
And so they have this whole thing planned out, and he's gonna walk like 100%. Like they try to get everything. And one thing that we didn't mention, there is this character McDonald in the series that we find out she actually has meta powers, and she can tell when a crime weapon was used. So she's like, "Let me go do this, boss. I know what gun it's gonna be." And so she gets the actual gun. She's like, "This is the murder gun," because she just can sense it.
Yes.
Well, they can't prove it because Corrigan knows the ballistics guy that's going to do all the reporting. He lies about it, and they even hint at that he changed out the barrel of the guns and stuff. So even if they went and had somebody else do it, the guns already been tampered with and changed. So you're just like, holy crap, this guy Batmaned the GCPD.
Yeah.
And the one thing you hate the whole time is when they're questioning him, and they question the girl too. They have the same story. He's just so smug. He's just looking at the mirror and being like, "What's up, bitches? I'm going to get out of this." And so you just want him to die so bad.
So bad, dude.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
my
Montoya,
God.
this whole time, she's having to go through it. Like her lover is trying to like, "Oh, you need to stay here. You need to stay with the family," because she had to go tell Chris's family that he got murdered. Or she was supposed to go, but she was like, "I can't do it. I can't do it." So she doesn't show up, and then she's real close with them because they were partners. And she's like, "How you were going to do this?" One of the crazy things is she goes to like, what do they call them? Wakes or
a wake or a eulogy or
after they're buried.
Yeah.
And they go to the house, and I was kind of like, "Holy shit, this was fucked up." She talks to one of the sons outside, and he's
dude,
smoking.
I completely understand the mindset, but I don't think I like the line.
Yeah. So what happens is the son's out there smoking, and she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" She grabs a cigarette and throws it, and he's all like, "Man, my dad's not coming home, right? Whatever." And he's all like, "Man, you know what? I've been thinking about this a lot." He was like, "Why wasn't it you?" And I was just like, "Oh."
But see, so I did not agree with this line, but as soon as I turned the page, I was thinking, he just lost his dad.
Yeah.
He even says that in the panel next, like prior to it, he says, "I keep asking myself the same thing, Renee, and I hate myself for asking it, but I keep asking it anyway, and I can't help it.
Yeah.
Why wasn't it you?"
Yeah.
And I'm just like, fuck.
I loved it. Not because that's like sick burn, bro, but you just feel that. And people say that.
It shows the emotion of like what really happened. This child lost their father, and not only that, but like he even says, "I hate myself for asking this," because they really did have a really good relationship. They had dinner together all the time. They, had hangouts at their house and at Chris's house. Like, they were a family. And this kid is just like, you know what? It should have been you. It should have been you.
Yeah. So, of course, that's on Montoya. Her lover tries to talk to her, and she's like, "I'm too far gone." So she leaves. And what this ends up happening is Montoya goes to find Corrigan. And he's, of course, getting it on with his girl or whatever. And she breaks into his house, and they're like, "What the fuck?" She knocks the fuck out of the girl, and she's like, oh, and she just falls
Blood
down.
goes
And he,
everywhere.
yeah, and she points the gun in his face, and she's all like, "You're gonna pay for what you did," basically.
And
And he's
this
crying.
one, this was a line that I love. She
Yeah,
says, "Are you gonna take it like a man, or are you gonna shoot? Am I gonna have to shoot you in the back like you did, Chris?"
yeah,
And I was like, "Oh my god!" And at this
yeah.
point, Jim Corrigan has a knife. He's ready. He looks ready to stab
Mhm.
her. But the more she keeps walking towards him, you see how he
Yeah,
becomes belittled, and you see him eventually drop the knife, and he begs. He
yeah,
begs, "Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. I don't want to die. I don't want to die." And you see it in her face. She
yeah.
wants to do it. She ends up like you see tears
Mhm.
starting to come out from her eyes, and she just walks away. She
Yeah.
walks away,
And
goes to the GCPD, goes to Central, goes to MCU, drops her gun and her badge on Sawyer's desk, and says, "I'm done.
yeah,
I'm over it.
yeah.
I can't do it anymore."
And the series ends like that. And again, I know some people will be like, "Oh, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. I hate that." And that again, this did make me feel like the end of freaking playing oh my god, what's that Rockstar game? The detective one?
Oh,
Um
L.A.
uh
Noir.
LA Noir made me feel exactly like that because LA Noir, spoiler alert, if you haven't played this game, it's been out for like a decade. It ends with the cop saving somebody, but he ends up dying, and the bad guys are still alive, and you're just like, what the fuck? But as some people pointed out in my chat, they were like, well, I mean, but it's kind of like real life, man. Like the bad guys get away sometimes, and I was like, yeah. Especially with cops. Like when it comes to cops, I've been so many bad people get away. And I
Now,
know a lot of people are, like will say different things like, "Oh, this and that, cops are bad," whatever. Yes.
I really want to tell a good friend of mine, a podcast acquaintance of
Uh huh.
mine, to read this book, but his biggest pet peeve in the
Hmm.
entire world is when the bad guys win.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm afraid to show him this book because I feel like he
Yeah.
would feel like the bad guys won. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at it, technically yes, but when you really look at it, in the bigger scheme of things, we know that Jim
Hmm.
Corrigan does end up dying, and
I need to read that book where he dies
he
just to get some
oh,
closure.
for real, dude. I need to find that book now, especially knowing he
Yeah.
becomes the Spectre, and he
Hmm.
becomes basically the one thing that he was never able to do. Be
Yeah.
righteous. He was never able
Hmm.
to be the good guy. And now he's able to, or he's
Yeah.
more so forced to because it's in his nature as the Spectre. So that would be interesting to read about. But also, I just
Yeah.
looked it up on
Hmm.
Amazon. Gotham Central Omnibus.
Hmm.
The very first listing, there's only 10 left. It is $88.25.
Damn.
Yeah.
Man. It's good though. It's a good series. I will say that yeah, I need to read that Jim Corrigan guy die because I need that closure. I will say one thing: read this series; it's fantastic. But if this was a show, you have two options at ending this series. She either does what she does in the book, or you end it with her shooting him because like, and then she just goes to jail. Like that would be a great way to end a series too,
Yeah.
because I was just like, yeah, you could end her like you have this character. It's a la Walter White. Although I will say I'm not the biggest Breaking Bad fan. I was not a fan of Walter White trying to right all his wrongs at the end. I wanted him. I wanted Walter White. This is just personal opinion. Writer as a writer in me, I wanted him to be the symbol of how cancer destroys somebody because he had cancer and he was constantly going down this and he was getting worse and worse and worse, and that's how cancer destroys family, cancer destroys all this stuff, it destroys a person.
Yeah.
But the way he tried to right his wrong at the end, I was like, meh, I wish he would have just killed everybody, like because his family turned on him,
Yeah.
and Jesse
Yeah.
did. Like he should have just offed everybody, but he offed the bad guys to go save Jesse, and we got a happy ending. I did not care about that. It was still a great series. I just wasn't a fan of the ending. But here too, she goes through so much shit that at the end, you would still be okay with her shooting him.
Yeah.
I think. I think
Yeah.
a majority of people would be fine.
I
She's like,
think
sure.
that it would be okay. Now, a lot of people would probably, fans of this series and fans of Renee Montoya altogether, because now we have a whole new corner of fans because of Birds of Prey, would be like, oh,
Yeah.
but that's not the character. She wouldn't really
Mm-hmm.
do that. But I
Yeah.
think it would make it even better because this is a whole new envision of this character that we haven't seen
Yeah.
before in a live action media. I would really enjoy it. Um, like Juice said, this is definitely a book that I think you guys should pick up. Now, I just said the omnibus is $88, but if you're okay with spending $7 in a month and you think you can finish it in 30 days, it's on freaking DC Universe. That's how we read
We
it.
finished it in 5.
Yep.
So it's definitely doable. If you have a whole day, because I was reading this at work, so I was reading 10 to 12 issues at work for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Our job's really boring. We have a lot of time.
Yeah, for real.
But I would also read issues. I probably read 10 to 12 a day, to be honest. But I also read like a couple when I came home. So, but yeah, it's definitely doable. It's a good read. It doesn't feel like it drags at any points where you're just like, oh, hurry up, this dialogue's too much. No,
Yeah.
it's like really good. And the thing is, like, yeah, I don't know, man. I would love to see this as a show. Compared to the Gotham that we got on Fox, like, I don't think it was as planned out as this was. I don't think they even thought. I don't think that show thought it was going to survive past season 3. So that's why season 4 and 5 just felt like it was going nowhere. But I hope at some point with HBO trying to make Green Lantern shows and all this other crap, I hope that they drop a Gotham Central show at some point, because Ed Brubaker does do TV shows now. So if he just goes to HBO and he's like, hey, me and Greg Rucka over here, we made this series called Gotham Central. It's way different than what y'all guys or CW or WB did over on Fox. Like, this would be a real true detective type show. This is our pitch, and they do it like that. That would be fantastic.
For sure.
Because again, you would have a, LGBT lead character. You would have a very diverse crew. You wouldn't have one, particular lead character. It seems like a bunch of them will all have their own arcs. And then you could still have the Batman without having the Batman. You just got to have the white eyes and, I'll help this out, or I'll do whatever. He comes in and he beats people, or he does whatever. HBO, I think if you were to be like, okay, yeah, you can have the Batman, you can do whatever, you just can't use him in daylight or whatever, I think it would be great. You can't use Bruce Wayne, whatever. I would think that this would be such a great show because it's so noir. Ed Brubaker is so good at this stuff. I had just read another thing that I really loved about this, and I didn't pick this series because it was Brubaker. I genuinely started reading it, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't know Brubaker was reading this. I thought it was Rucka. I had just finished Brubaker's Catwoman, which is also a fantastic read. Highly suggest people to read that.
For sure.
Yeah, he's just a really good. And if you haven't read a lot of Brubaker stuff, and another great thing about Gotham Central that we didn't point out was this is in continuity with a bunch of other runs.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, the Spectre issue was a Crisis tie-in, an Infinite Crisis tie-in or something like that?
It was a Final Crisis tie-in.
Final Crisis. So, it was really interesting. Shazam showed up in it. It was such a good series. And so if you want to read a lot of older Batman before, New 52, this matches up perfectly. And
They also talk about No Man's Land.
Yep.
Freaking Montoya actually says, hey, this is, they talk about a certain part of town that's where she grew up. And they do name drop No Man's Land. So it was pretty cool that happened.
Yeah. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. This is an excellent story. Brubaker is an excellent writer. I'm really sad that Rucka is not writing anything like this currently, because his Lois Lane book aesthetically looks like something that Gotham Central is, aesthetically, like I said, but the actual writing makes zero sense because he is being hindered by somebody who I don't like naming.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Ed Brubaker is quickly becoming one of my favorite writers. But unfortunately, again, Batman has so many years under his belt that I just feel like I'm constantly finding new writers that are amazing. Obviously, we've heard on this podcast for a long time that I've loved Tom King. but getting a change of pace with a Brubaker or a Jeff Loeb, Jeff Loeb.
Jeff Loeb.
Yeah, Jeff Loeb. They're some of the best Batman writers, and I think, you know what? Like, if you really want to dive into just one character, you want to learn a lot about characters, Batman is probably the best thing you can do, because they've 80 years. Like, they try to get really fancy with things they've done, and if you can just branch out something that rarely has to do with Batman and make something so good as this, I'm all down for it. Like, I would love to see more Nightwing and more Batgirl and stuff in this kind of style. Fucking fantastic.
For sure.
So, give me Brubaker again on Batman after Tinian. I don't give a shit. Like, one of them. But I don't think he's I think he's more into indie. I heard a podcast with him recently that I think he likes doing his own work now.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate, but hey, more power to him. But that's where we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up, ladies and gentlemen. So hopefully this will be on the Bat from the Box channel. We are going to go ahead and wrap this up. Clay, you got a pimp on any of your podcast?
Yeah, of course. You can find me at the Fanboy Comics Podcast on Anchor, mainly on anything else where you listen to your podcast, that being iTunes, Pocket Casts, Stitcher, anywhere really. But I do 3 shows every single week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I dive into the Marvel Unlimited app, I dive into the DC Universe app, and I've recently been doing a big dive into the Shonen Jump app, doing My Hero Academia, reading Dragon Ball Super, and going all the way back to Rurouni Kenshin, a personal favorite of mine. But having a lot of fun doing that as well, and if you would like to hear more about DC stuff, for me personally, I have a podcast with my friend Mark at the Comic Book Legion podcast.
Nice. One thing I didn't talk about, I forgot to mention at the start, and I'll mention it right here real quick, is we did mention this on the last podcast. Freaking Three Jokers did get pushed back. It is coming out August 25th, if I'm not mistaken, and it will still be monthly, so it'll be August, September, October. They released some more photos. They look fantastic. I just can't wait to get that book. I wanted to put that out there. And Batman is returning in the end of June. I think we talked about it.
Yep.
So we talked about the other stuff, yeah. But I just wanted to say that Three Jokers did get pushed back, but it will be coming back. But anyways, for me, check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/JUICEfromtheBOX. Of course, I'm hopefully uploading this on Bat from the Box. There is something really cool that I cannot yet talk about that I will hopefully be talking about in the future. But when I can talk about that, I will let these peeps on here know about it on the podcast. I got the burps. Sorry, guys. But that is going to be it, ladies and gentlemen. Just check out my YouTube channel. It's the same old stuff. Links are in the description. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, he is Fanboy Clay. I am Juice Wayne. As always, nope, wrong one. Remember, Batman is awesome.
See you later.
I think the girls with their nails done now.